It's scary enough to try to date in the real world. We have heard so many stories of people being targeted on dating apps like Tinder and Hinge, and then they go on the date and are never seen again. So when there's an opportunity to not just find love on a reality show, but get some clout while you're at it, people jump at the opportunity and assume that all of the participants are going to be fully vetted. But unfortunately, with the franchise Love is Blind, this has not been proven to be true. So today, we are going to jump into the most recent Love is Blind controversy, which involves an attempted murder of two of the participants. And it is a dark one, guys. So sit back, relax, and take a deep breath. It's time to let the fresh air in. Hey everyone, welcome back, or welcome if you're new. And boy, oh boy, we are starting this week off with something absolutely wild. Now, I normally focus on cults and true crime cases, but recently the reality television world has been just kind of drenched in controversy, whether it's a DV allegation or an attempted murder in this case, or a cult leader being featured on a reality show. I'm just trying to figure out why we keep putting these people on our screens and platform them. So I really wanted to talk about this situation today. If you want to subscribe, please do so. So anyways, we're going to jump on into today's video. In 2024, Netflix launched Love is Blind Argentina, and it immediately became the #1 show on the platform in the country. 32 singles entered the pods, 16 men and 16 women spent 10 days in gender-specific residences having one-on-one conversations through a screen, trying to decide if they could fall in love with a voice, a personality, the idea of a person. It's the exact same format that made the American version one of the most watched, most popular unscripted series on television. Now, one couple made it out all the way to the very end, and they stood out as a fan favorite. Santiago Martínez, 29, and Emily Ceco, 24. And they were actually the first couple in the Argentine season to get engaged. They said yes at the altar. They had a civil ceremony on camera, and they started planning a real private church wedding. So it looked by every metric and from the outside like this Love is Blind experiment worked. But 13 months later, Santiago Martínez was convicted of attempted femicide, the Argentine legal term for attempted murder in the context of gender-based violence, so trying to kill a woman, along with repeated assault and unlawful detention. He was sentenced to 15 years in prison. And who was his victim? His Love is Blind wife, Emily. Now, this is extra tragic because during filming, Emily was very open about her past. She told the cameras, and by extension, millions of future viewers, that she had previously been in a relationship with a violent partner. She spoke candidly about her fears of ending up in a situation like that again. And she talked about what it felt like to carry that history into a process that's designed to fast track emotional vulnerability. This wasn't just subtext. It wasn't something discovered after the fact. It was part of her storyline. It was in the edit that millions saw. So just think about what that means for a second from a production standpoint. The casting team knew. The producers who conducted all the interviews knew. The psychologists who performed the show's mandatory psychological evaluations, they all knew. And the editors who assembled her narrative arc over 10 episodes also knew. Emily's history of intimate partner violence wasn't a secret. It was content. It was used to build this emotional investment in her character. Viewers were meant to root for her to find a safe place in her future husband. That was the story the show was selling. And the person that the show paired her with, the person she got engaged to, the person she married, would try to kill her. Even within the carefully curated footage that made it to air, viewers started to notice things. One scene in particular drew immediate criticism online. Santiago was seen abruptly taking Emily's plate of food away from her at a dinner table because he believed she was eating too much. And rightly so, viewers flagged in real time on social media that this was problematic behavior. And Emily's own mother would later confirm that, yes, some of these concerning moments were captured on camera during the show. So, in isolation, a moment like that might be dismissed as awkward or maybe culturally insensitive. But in the context of intimate partner violence research, controlling a partner's eating is a well documented pattern of coercive control. It's not a silly quirk, it's an indicator. And it was visible on screen in finished footage on a platform watched by millions of people. And one can't help but ask, if he's willing to do that in front of cameras, what is he willing to do behind closed doors? Because this footage aired. It wasn't cut, and it was presumably kept in because they knew it was going to create drama or tension or engagement. It drove social media conversation, and it made people talk about the show. And the algorithm doesn't distinguish between compelling television and warning signs, and neither apparently did the production team. So this all spread like wildfire. And to production, they were like, all press is good press. Let's just keep exploiting people's most vulnerable fears and experiences. How about no? Now, there were other moments too. Viewers described Santiago's behavior as marked by intense jealousy and impulsive reactions throughout the season. According to Emily's later testimony, the first signs of aggression began appearing around the second month of their relationship, which, on the compressed Love is Blind timeline, means that they were likely emerging while cameras were still present or had only recently stopped rolling. Now, after the show wrapped, Santiago and Emily continued their relationship off camera. They moved into a shared home in General Rodriguez, Buenos Aires province. They had already been legally married in the civil ceremony filmed for the show, and now they were planning a private church wedding to make it more personal. And that date was set for February 22nd, 2025. Emily's family organized a bachelorette party for her on February 8th, and it included a sex-themed theater show, the kind of event that's common at Argentine bachelorette celebrations. Emily attended with family members, and according to her testimony, she was really afraid of how Santiago would react. I mean, she knew it might trigger him, and she later told a court that she had been managing his reactions for months, calibrating her behavior around his volatility. And she was right to be afraid, because Emily has described what happened next in multiple interviews, in Argentine media appearances, and in her own testimony before the court. This is her account as she has given it publicly. When she returned home from the bachelorette party, Santiago became enraged. He locked the bedroom door, and Emily asked him to unlock it, asked to be allowed to leave, but he refused. She began to just pack her things and tried to de-escalate the situation, trying to find an exit. That's when, according to her testimony, Santiago began hitting her. She alleged that he punched her in the head and back, and she begged him to stop. He called her a slur and hit her again. She alleged that he then pinned her to the bed and began choking her, covering her mouth so she couldn't scream. She bit his hand to try to free herself, and he pushed her face into the bed and continued hitting her in the head. In a more recent interview, Emily added a detail that wasn't present in her earlier public accounts. She said that Santiago covered her face with a pillow during the assault, in addition to the choking and the punching. Now, Emily has alleged that during the attack, Santiago referenced TikTok videos of her dancing on stage at the bachelorette party. He told her that she wasn't crying then, cry now. According to Emily's testimony in Argentine media reporting, she remained confined in the home for 2 days after the attack before she was able to escape, and then she was able to flee to her sister's home. Now, Emily has described being afraid she wouldn't be able to see again after the attack. It was so bad. He had given her a massive black eye after that beating. She told Mediodía Noticias that Santiago didn't want her to leave the house because people would see her. She said that he brought her ice and told her it would go away in 2 days. She said that he asked her not to go outside. And when she finally did get out, she went to the Comisaría de la Mujer, Argentina's specialized police unit for gender-based violence, and filed a formal complaint. And this is so important. And it makes me really value countries that isolate femicide from homicide, because femicide is an attack on a woman specifically, and it holds a lot of weight in countries that have that distinction between femicide and homicide. Now, in America, there is a documented, consistent statistic that says that people who are victims of DV really, really hesitate to go to the police. Some just keep dealing with getting beaten over and over again. And the statistic is, I believe, 7 or 8 times they try to leave. And when they're trying to leave, things are the most dangerous for them. And I think that having that specification between femicide and homicide could help empower women to come forward and get the help that they need leaving a violent situation like this, because I don't know if in America we feel as women like violence against us will be taken as seriously. I mean, we've seen it time and time and time and time again. We're seeing it now on large scales that it's just not taken seriously. And oftentimes women feel like they have to kind of take it into their own hands and like go public with what happened to them, or they're afraid to file a police report because of, having to deal with any kind of like legal battle. There's just so many complications. And I'm just really, really proud that she went to the police right away, because she was given a perimetral, which is the Argentine equivalent of a restraining order, and a botón antipánico, which is basically a panic button. I mean, I've never heard of anyone in America getting a panic button and being served a restraining order basically the second they have reported the DV. I mean, I just wonder if we would have a lower, rating of DV against women if we had more systemic organization that offered resources like this. I mean, a panic button, that feels like I've never heard of it. I think it's amazing. The legal system in Argentina really immediately recognized the severity of the threat. So Emily decided, you know what? I'm going to speak out. She, at that point, was an influencer. She had a following online. She was able to go to the press, and the press were going to want to hear what she had to say. So she decided she was going to speak out publicly, and she went on the streaming show El Ejército de la Mañana on Bondi Live, where she showed her bruised and swollen left eye and the bruises on her arm. And this interview went viral. She said she decided to speak publicly to raise awareness among other gender violence victims. She told InfoBay that she felt ashamed, especially about telling her parents, but she spoke anyways. And she was only 25 years old, a journalism student, an influencer, and she was describing on camera how the man she married on television had tried to kill her. So, one thing that people might not recognize regarding this attack is that the February 8th situation was the most violent, but it wasn't the beginning of the violence. The event was a pattern that escalated over time and encompassed verbal degradation, psychological manipulation, and systematic isolation long before it ever became physical. I think people misconstrue violence and kind of think that verbal violence is less serious than physical violence. But I think what sometimes we fail to recognize or understand is that these are all little stepping stones. This behavior escalates. And the second you see or feel a red flag with a partner or a friend, where they start making little jabs at you or start exhibiting controlling behavior, it is always going to escalate. And by the time it gets to violence, it might be too late depending on the kind of violence. So I really think that this is something so important to talk about. Emily would describe that Santiago called her fat, told her she was stupid, that she was ugly, and that she wasn't good enough. She said that he subjected her to every insult imaginable. And this is something that abusers do very often because they want to lower your self-worth, and then the abuser wants to be the only person to give you any kind of compliment. So they're going to put you down so that they can be the one to lift you back up. This is a common tactic we see in DV situations consistently across this channel. He wanted to strip her down, make her feel so worthless that even if she wanted to reach out to somebody else for help, she had such little self-worth that she wouldn't want to. He also told her that she needed to cover her face with makeup so no one could see what he'd done to her. He told her not to speak to neighbors. He told her not to speak to family. He was systematically cutting her off from everyone in her life, tightening the circle of control until she was alone with him inside it. Emily would go on to say that Santiago's gaze paralyzed her. She said he would get upset about anything and that he didn't make her feel safe. And then he would cycle back to telling her that she was the love of his life and apologize to her while he was crying. So this oscillation between violence and tenderness, the constant recalibration of the victim's reality, it is a hallmark of coercive control. It's not loss of temper, it's a system. This guy knows he's manipulating her. And what's really sad, and this is so common with other DV survivors, is shame. Emily has described the shame that she felt, how it kept her silent. She said she felt deep shame that this was happening to her, and so she didn't want to open up to friends and family. And this shame is not incidental to the abuse, but a product of it. Others like to weaponize shame because it keeps victims from seeking help. Santiago didn't just hurt Emily. He made her feel like being hurt was something to be embarrassed about because she deserved it, according to him. Now, Santiago's response to the allegations has followed a textbook pattern that domestic violence researchers have documented extensively. So first came the minimization. According to journalist Federico Bongiorno, people close to Martinez characterized what happened as just a family fight. Now, this is one of the most common deflection strategies in DV cases because it reframes unilateral assault as mutual conflict. It transforms a perpetrator into a co-participant and implies a shared fault. It basically into just a disagreement. But then came the remorse phase. Martinez reportedly sent Emily a message in which he acknowledged making mistakes he never thought possible and attributed his behavior to childhood traumas and a difficult upbringing and promised the fighting, yelling, and insults would stop. He told her he was willing to work to fix it, and he said he assured her that those days of anger and transformation would go away. This language, the appeal to personal history as explanation, the promise of change, the implicit request for another chance, is the remorse phase of the cycle of abuse. The abuser expresses genuine, seeming contrition while simultaneously reframing the violence as a shared problem rather than a unilateral act. It's designed to reestablish the emotional bond and hopefully keep the victim in this dangerous relationship. But luckily, Emily did not go back. Now, what makes this case distinct from a private DV situation is that it was happening inside a media apparatus. Emily was a public figure. The violence was public because the relationship was public, and Santiago's defense was also public. Santiago told the Argentine program LAM on America TV that he wasn't asking Emily to forget, but that he could assure her the behavior would stop. He framed his violence as something that had surfaced, as if it were a symptom rather than a choice. He said his childhood traumas had finally come out. He positioned himself as someone who needed help, not someone who had committed a crime. This isn't just personal manipulation, it's a public narrative management, and there is absolutely no justification for trying to kill your spouse because I have childhood trauma. Um, don't we all? Now, Santiago was trying to perform the remorse cycle for an audience of millions, and the media was amplifying it. Now, Emily, for her part, was unequivocal. In an interview with Mediodía Noticias, she said three words that Argentine media would repeat for months: El intento matarme. He tried to kill me. Netizens online have been so angry and disturbed by this case, and it really lit everything on fire. So there is no surprise that this case would go to trial. Emily's attorney was Roberto Castillo, a well known Argentine lawyer, and the prosecution sought 16 years for attempted femicide aggravated by gender based violence, unlawful detention, and repeated minor bodily injuries. Now, Emily testified for over 4 hours. She reconstructed each episode of violence and traced how the escalated from verbal intimidation to physical assault to the night Santiago allegedly tried to strangle her. She described the first signs of aggression appearing around the second month of that relationship. She referenced a scene of jealousy that occurred during a gathering with other Love is Blind castmates, a moment her mother confirmed had been captured on camera during the show. Other witnesses testified as well. Several of Santiago's ex-partners came forward to describe similar patterns of violence. Emily had named three of them publicly after the verdict: Nicole, Carolina, and Pamela. Their testimony was critical in establishing a pattern of behavior that predated the Love is Blind relationship. He didn't just start hurting his partner because, oh no, his childhood trauma all of a sudden came to the surface. It wasn't an isolated incident caused by the pressures of fame or the accelerated timeline of a reality show. According to the testimony of multiple women, Santiago had a history. And in one of the most striking moments of the trial, Santiago's own father took to the stand and asked his son to take responsibility for what he had done. Now, the sentencing hearing was the first time Emily had seen Santiago since she called things off. She described being terrified. Her whole body was shaking. During his final statement, Santiago apologized to Emily and to her family and told her, the audacity, he told her he still loved her. Emily's brother was in the courtroom and he confronted Santiago directly, telling him that if he loved her so much, why'd he almost kill her? Emily later said that her brother never loses his composure, but that in that moment, he was acting on the pain of the entire family. Emily also described the atmosphere during her testimony. She said that while she was giving evidence, she could hear Santiago's mother laughing and making aggressive comments from the gallery. From the very trial. What is wrong with you? How dare you? Your son is accused of attempted murder, and you are sitting while the victim is testifying and you're giggling? So, Emily was able to use that to her advantage. She said that that behavior was an extension of the intimidation that she'd experienced throughout the relationship. So, just this year, in March 2026, Santiago was sentenced to 15 years in prison for attempted femicide aggravated by gender-based violence, unlawful detention for locking her in her bedroom, and repeated minor bodily injuries. Emily has expressed that she has 15 years of peace ahead of her, but is concerned about what happens when those 15 years are over. Now, in media appearances after the sentencing, Emily was asked directly whether she blamed Love is Blind or Netflix for what happened. And she said no. She said it was Santiago and Santiago alone. She put all of the responsibility on the individual, but her mother disagreed with her. Her mother, Andrea, said plainly that the show could have prevented Emily from suffering the beating and the abuse she endured for an entire year. And a lot of people online are blaming Netflix. This is not the only individual who has shown to be problematic who has appeared on the show Love is Blind. Even in America, there have been multiple instances where women have come out after a show begins to air to talk about the violence they experienced at the hands of a contestant on the show. For years in the reality television world, whether it's someone showing racist behavior, violent behavior, or otherwise problematic behavior, there have been a lot of questions directed at casting directors and producers asking, why aren't you properly vetting these people? Are these people just coming in for an interview, doing a psychological examination, and then no one's doing a background check to see if they have a shady past or history? Why? I believe that if proper vetting had been conducted, this situation could have been avoided because Santiago clearly had a history of violent behavior. I mean, Netflix or any producer of a reality television show should have a robust vetting process. Background checks, yes, but actually investigate behavioral patterns, speak to former partners, especially in a show where people are getting married at the end of it. They need to cross reference warning signs and maybe catch problematic behavior. And the fact that so many women came forward in Emily's case speaks volumes to the pattern of behavior that could have been established. All it takes is having Santiago write down references of women he's dated in the past. I'd be really curious to know what you all think about these dating shows. Because when Love is Blind creator Chris Colin was asked directly about the show's vetting process in a 2024 interview with The Hollywood Reporter, his answer was remarkably candid. He said the show conducts background checks and psychological evaluations. He said that everyone in the world has a story. And then he said the quiet part out loud. We aren't the police. And then he said that the show doesn't regulate or monitor contestants' conversations, whether they're being filmed or not, and they don't dictate what contestants should or shouldn't discuss. So if someone has children, a bad relationship, debt, a particular sexual history, those things don't preclude them from participating. The show gives participants a lot of opportunities to tell the truth and then just kind of blindly trusts that what they're saying are true. So maybe we don't do that. For example, there was a scandal with a contestant named Trevor Sova, where Sova's ex-girlfriend publicly accused him of cheating and threatening to distribute intimate images of her. The show's casting director spoke with Variety and acknowledged that the situation had changed how they approached screenings, but didn't offer any specifics on further vetting. That was it. That was the reform. They're just going to open their eyes a little bit more. The show's position overall, articulated consistently across multiple public statements, is that it conducts standard background checks and it can't be expected to uncover everything, and that it trusts its contestants to be honest. Now, this is a framework designed to insulate the production from liability, not to protect the people on camera. Background checks, yes, catch criminal convictions, but they don't catch patterns of coercive control, unreported violence, or behavioral red flags that haven't yet entered the legal system. For that, you would need a process that investigates rather than just blindly trusts. And investigations might cost the production company money. It'll take time, and it might eliminate the kind of volatile, high drama contestants who make for good television. Now, there have been so many instances of contestants specifically on Love is Blind who have been problematic, especially as this series has spread across the globe in multiple countries, featuring a diverse group of people. And I believe that if you are going to do a show like that, where you are encouraging people to get married within 2 months of meeting somebody, there needs to be a vetting process. We need to start thinking less about just making money and pumping out content and really consider the impact that we can have on an individual's life by putting them in the same room with an abuser or dangerous individual. It's not hard to reach out to someone's exes or find resources or look online. I mean, I remember when I got cheated on, the girl he cheated on me with put him up on cheaters.com, and he was an actor. And so, like, whenever you searched his name in Google, the first thing that popped up was him being outed as a cheater. Like, it's not hard to Google search a name and get dirt on somebody. I mean, they always say girls are CIA, FBI agents. We are. We can figure some stuff out. We can also run criminal background checks on people. We are able to look at someone's Instagram or social media, see who they dated previously, and reach out to her. That's not going to take too much time. It's so easy to do nowadays with how social media is set up. And these platforms, Netflix, other streaming services, could so easily just go and search these people's Instagrams and highly vet them. I mean, when you think about other reality television shows, like the Dallas Cowboy cheerleader show comes to mind. If those women post anything that seems slightly sexual on their social media, they're not making the team. They are thoroughly vetted. Why can't a production company with a vast amount of resources do the same thing? Properly vet their participants so that no harm is done to the other participants, especially if they're choosing to exploit a survivor of DV for a storyline and you're going to set her up with someone you didn't properly vet. Give me a break. So, anyways, I'm going to stop ranting for a sec because I was getting really heated. I would love to hear what you guys have to say below. And thank you so much for your insight. I hope this was educational for you. There are some resources for DV down in the pinned comment below, so you have access to that quickly. It's so scary to speak out, but just know there are services available to you. And although things feel dire in this situation, I do believe that the tides are changing, maybe really, really, really slowly. But I believe the more women who are brave and speak out and share their stories, it'll empower others to do so as well. And it'll encourage people to really believe those stories too. So, thank you all so much for being here today. Stay safe out there. Always ask questions and always stay skeptical. I'll see you in my next video soon. Thank you so much. Bye.